Hi, welcome to Chapter 5 of Lord of the Flies. I hope you all are well. I wanted to give an overview of Lord of the Flies, some more overview, and then discuss some of the characters and what's going on in Chapter 5. So the first thing I want to discuss is a coming-of-age story. Have you heard of that term, coming of age? It's a ton of stories are coming of age. And what that means is you start with a child who doesn't have the skills of an adult, whatever those may be, and then in the story they grow up and they become more mature. Through a bunch of obstacles and trials, they become an adult. Not necessarily age-wise, but they just have the maturity and they're on the path to adulthood. This is a lot of stories. Not just children's stories, but adult stories too. Of course, my mind is blanking out right now as far as which ones, but it is a lot. So in some ways, Lord of the Flies is a dystopian coming of age. Dystopian, as we talked about earlier, is the opposite of utopian. Utopian is an ideal society in the good. So the Garden of Eden is utopian. That's the idea that everybody lives in peace, no one ever starves, no one fights, there's enough food and everything for everybody. That's kind of utopia. Dystopia, dys is a opposite or against. So dystopian is the opposite. It's kind of like a nightmarish world. And as you can see, this is a dystopian coming of age story. So you have the protagonist, some of you have used that term, who is Ralph, is the protagonist in this story. And just like in Romeo and Juliet were the protagonists. In this story, Ralph is the protagonist, or the main protagonist, and the antagonist is the person who's against him, which would be Jack. This is slightly different from foils that we discussed earlier. Foils are what? They are two characters who highlight each other's traits through being the opposite. So you show somebody's goodness through somebody's being evil, but it doesn't have to be good and evil, and it doesn't have to be protagonist or antagonist. It could be just two different people, and you each reveal their trait through highlighting the opposite. Like in Romeo and Juliet, you had kind of Mercutio and Benvolio, for instance. It's easy to show foils in good versus evil, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a foil in pretty much any trait. So in this case, though, certainly Jack and Ralph are foils. And in the main way that they're foils is in leadership. And this is a larger theme. One of the themes of the book is what makes a good leader. Both of them are leaders, Jack and Simon. They're natural leaders. Not Simon, sorry, Ralph. Both Ralph and Jack are natural leaders, but they approach leadership in a very, very different way, and they have different goals. So one of the things that we would have discussed had this been in the class is what makes a good leader? What are the qualities of being a good leader? Why do people follow leaders? In Jack's case, he has a very simple goal, and that's to kill the pig. And a very simple satisfaction. It's easy to judge whether he's successful or not. He kills the pig, he's a successful leader, their bellies are full. It's simple. He's a very kind of... Some of you use the term evil. I wouldn't call Jack evil. I would call him... I don't know what I would call him. You come up with words. But he's not... He's a certain type of leader. He's the type of leader who has very concrete goals that are short-term, not long-term. So a short-term goal would be the immediate future, without any regard for what anything in the larger world, what anything, like anywhere far down. So, um, his short-term goal is to hunt and kill a pig. As far as being rescued, as you saw when he let the fire out, he doesn't think of that. It's not like he said, "How shall I?" Like, I don't care about being rescued. It's not that. It's that he doesn't think about it. So, in order to be rescued, you have to plan and make that a priority. So, you have to keep the fire up. You can't just say, "I'm going to take some of the sticks so I can kill the pig, and the ship won't come when I do that." Like, you can't say that like he did. That's because he's looking at short-term goals of killing the pig. And he's not looking at any long-term goal. And the way he leads is by appealing to that. And a lot of people are attracted by that. A lot of people, as it goes on, they wanted to eat meat. I mean, they were sick of eating. It was two different things. They want to eat meat, like anyone would, and they want to have a feeling of accomplishment, because that's the deeper issue. Because hunting the pig gives them a feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction that nothing else on that island can give. Certainly not lighting the fire. Lighting the fire is a long-term goal. You have to be an adult, pretty much. You have to be mature and think, I need to light the fire today because maybe in a year a boat might come and see the fire. And I have to do this every single day. No one pats me on the back. There's no tangible goals. There's no tangible results or anything. I'm going to end here and go to part 2 because my computer's kind of old and it gets out of sync when I do as you can see, I don't know. I'm going to go to part 2. And I also want to just keep these shorter. So just look out for part 2 in my Lord of the Flies discussion.